Hi everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome to Papagei English, and this is our second session. In this session, we're going to focus on matching heading questions. Before starting the course, I would appreciate if you subscribe to my channel on YouTube and like my videos and leave your comments. All of them will help me to improve the quality of my courses. Now, let's start our second session. Strategies for approaching heading questions. There are two important points I want to talk about them. The first thing before approaching the heading questions or any type of questions in the IELTS reading test is to just look at the title in order to get the gist of the passage, what the passage is about. Is it about history, psychology, chemistry, physics, and so forth? Number two, read the instructions carefully. Instructions are very important. Choose your signals or keywords, circle them, and narrow your options. You need to sometimes narrow your options, and in order to do this, underline the words. Okay, and now let's go on to our tips. Tip number one: in around 70% of the cases, you can find the answer in around the first 4 sentences of the paragraph. Often it is possible to find a sentence in a paragraph which conveys the main idea. This is known as the topic sentence. Heading questions could be in different levels, and when heading questions are easy, usually there is a topic sentence, and you can just by reading the topic sentence answer the questions. Okay. Tip number two: signals in 90% of the cases are paraphrase of the words that you have chosen, and not the same words. Be careful that if you see the same words, read around them carefully, because they are often used as traps to mislead you to the wrong answer. That's also an important point that you should remember. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Tip number three: the topic sentence can frequently be found at the start of the paragraph, but can appear in the middle or even at the end. Sometimes a paragraph may not have one single, clear topic sentence at all, and the main idea can only be understood by reading the paragraph in full. The difficulty level of the heading questions will determine the position of topic sentence. Okay, in the case the questions are difficult, there is usually no topic sentence, and you need to read the full paragraph. In the case it's very challenging, you need to search for details, some specific details. But when it is easy or normal, you are more likely to find a topic sentence in the first of the paragraph, or sometimes in the middle and sometimes at the end. Tip number four: be careful. Sometimes the first sentence of a paragraph seems to fit entirely with one particular heading. However, don't be caught out. You still need to check by reading the whole paragraph. Checking is very important in order to make sure that we are choosing the right answer. Tip number five: heading questions could be an easy, normal, and difficult level. Tip number six: sometimes in the heading questions there is an example that has been done for you, and the first thing you need to do is to eliminate the example paragraph and corresponding heading. Okay, this is our first example. Let's read the instructions carefully. You should spend about 20 minutes on questions 14 to 26, which are based on reading passage 2 on the following pages. Reading passage 2 has 7 paragraphs, A to H. Choose the correct heading for paragraphs A and C to H from the list of headings below. Questions 14 to 20. Now, as you see, there is an example that has been done for us. Now, the first thing I would do is just to eliminate the example. This is 3, okay? We should eliminate the example in order to don't confuse it while we're doing the test, okay? Now, I eliminated these options. Now, let's go back to the headings, and let me turn on my highlighter and choose our keywords. Okay, list of headings. Please have some paper and take notes while I am stating some important points, selecting our keywords. Okay, now the first one: scientists call for a revision of policy. What's the keyword here? It would be really difficult to find scientists, and that's not our keyword. Okay, but a revision of policy, this is a more general, and it can be easily found. Okay, it's about some change, and you're gonna look for something that is changed. Okay, so revision of a policy is easy to find. Words like policy, theory, explanation, plural nouns, steps, actions, all of these kinds of words are more likely to appear in the paragraphs, and in 80 or 90% of the cases we choose these kinds of words as our keywords or signals. Now let's go on to the second one, an explanation. Again, we have explanation for reduced water use. So this is our narrower, reduced water use. Irrigation systems fall into this use. Irrigation systems and this use. Environmental effects, that's short, and I take whole of it. The financial cost of recent technological improvements, relevance to health. That's also a short one. Addressing the concern over increasing populations. A surprising downward trend is important. Downward trend in demand for water. Okay, this is again our narrower. The need to raise standards. Standards is a plural noun and key to find the answer. A description of ancient water supplies. Description is important. We're going to look for description and also narrower ancient water supplies. Okay, now let me turn off my highlighter and go to the next slide and start answering the questions. This is paragraph 1. Okay, just look by your eyes and read this paragraph. You can even pause the video and think for a few seconds. I'm going to read this paragraph and underline important words in this paragraph. Okay, the Roman Empire. It's similar to one of our signals. Okay, now just look at the description of ancient water supplies. It has something to do with the word ancient. Now let's read around the Roman Empire carefully. The Roman Empire, 9 major systems with an innovative layout and well-built sewers, supplied the occupants of Rome with as much water per person as is provided in many parts of the industrial world today. Okay, I read around the Roman Empire carefully, and then I'm gonna select my answer. That has nothing to do with it. It's nothing about policy. It's not explanation. It's not about irrigation systems, environmental effects, financial cost, relevance to health, concern, and that's the only option. And there is no confusing option. We chose a description of ancient water supplies. Okay, this is for paragraph A. Now let's go on to the second paragraph. We eliminated paragraph B and we are on paragraph C. Yet there is a dark side to this practice. Despite our progress, half the world's population still suffers. With water services inferior to those available to the ancient Greeks and Romans, as the United Nations report on access to water reiterated in November 2001, more than 1 million people lack access to clean drinking water. So that's important. More than 1 billion people lack access to clean drinking water. Some 2.5 billion do not have adequate sanitation services. Preventable water-related disease kill an estimated 10,000 to 20,000 children every day. And the latest evidence suggests that we are falling behind in efforts to solve these problems. I just read this paragraph a lot because it is a tutorial session. You just need to read by your eyes, okay? There are something that's been mentioned in this passage, okay? Number one, more than 1 billion people lack access to clean drinking water, do not have adequate sanitation services, and water-related disease. Let's go back and look at our options. Environmental effect, relevance to health. These 2 options could be possible answers for that paragraph, but I'm not sure which one of these could be correct. If you're not sure, and if your general English isn't sufficient to recognize the correct answer from incorrect answer, then skip it and answer at the end of the test. Let's go on to the next paragraph. The consequences of water policies extend beyond jeopardizing human health. Tens of millions of people have been forced to move from their homes. That's an important sentence. The consequences of water policies extend beyond jeopardizing human health. Now, that's where I always say that general English is very important. If you don't know the meaning of jeopardize, you're gonna waste a lot of time. Jeopardize means to engender, to put at risk. Okay? jeopardizing human health. And this paragraph refers to the second paragraph, and it says to us that the second paragraph is related to human health. Okay, then I can choose the answer, the relevance to health for second paragraph and paragraph C. Now let's go and answer to this paragraph. Often with little warming or compensation to make way for reservoirs behind dams, more than 20% of freshwater fish species are not threatened or endangered because dams and water withdrawals have destroyed the free-flowing river ecosystems where they thrive. Okay, that's important. It has something to do with the environment. Certain irrigation practices degrade soil. Okay, as I said, this is my number one, and this is my number two option that relates to the environment. And I have read in my hidden titles that there is something to do with environment, environmental effects, and this is the answer for paragraph D. That was easy to find. Now let's go to the next paragraph. At the outset of the new millennium, however, the way resource planners think about water is beginning to change. Some change is happening here, and also some people think about something that's similar to one of our clues and signals. The focus is slowly shifting back. Again, shifting back is an indication of change to the provision of basic human and environmental needs as a top priority, ensuring some for all instead of more for some. That's also an important sentence, instead of ensuring some for all instead of more for some. Now let's go back to our options. Okay, scientists call for a revision of policy. That's the answer. That's the answer for paragraph E. Okay. That's the answer for paragraph E, and that was easy to find because in just around 3 or 4 sentences, and it was at the start of paragraph E. Okay, now let's move on to the next paragraph, and this is also a short paragraph. Fortunately and unexpectedly, the demand for water is not rising as rapidly as some predicted. This is the topic sentence, and this question is an easy question because you can find the topic sentence at just the start of the paragraph. Okay, the demand for water is not rising as rapidly as some predicted as a result of the pressure to build new water infrastructure. Okay, and I checked it. Just check by your eyes, and we have our topic sentence, and then we need to go back to our options and surprising downward trend in demand for water. I find the answer for paragraph F as well. That was the easiest one in this test. Paragraph F was the easiest one to find the correct heading for. Paragraph G. What explains this remarkable turn of events? Please be careful that this paragraph again refers to this paragraph. What explains this remarkable turn of events? Turn of events is about the not rising rapidly as some predicted. Okay, it's about a downward trend. It's about surprising downward trend. So what explains this remarkable turn of events? We had also an explanation clue. Okay, now just check this paragraph. 2 factors people have figured out: how to use water more efficiently, and communities are rethinking their priorities for water use. Okay, that's that. And paragraph G is about an explanation for reduced water use. So this is for paragraph G. And as I said, it's important that you would be able to recognize that these paragraphs refers to the previous paragraph. These kinds of recognition is important in the reading test, and in paragraph D we have a reference to the paragraph C, and if you are unable to recognize these references, you would suffer a lot, and you're going to lose lots of precious time in the reading test. As you see, the paragraph E It was easy to answer. You just need to read some sentences in the start of the paragraph. The paragraph F was the easiest. There was a clear topic sentence. The paragraph G also was easy because there was a topic sentence, and also it is referred to the previous paragraph. So it's important to be able to recognize these facts and features of the IELTS reading test. And as I told you, general English is very important. Now let's go on to the next paragraph. On the other hand, dams, aqueducts, and other kind of infrastructure will still have to be built, particularly in developing countries where basic human needs have not been met. Okay? Let's continue. I don't find anything relevant to my keywords, but such a project must be built. It must be built to higher specifications. Higher specifications is important. It's a plural noun, and it's similar to standards, and with more accountability to local people and their environment than in the past. And even in regions where new projects seem warranted, we must find ways to meet demands. Again, this is plural noun. Plural nouns are always important. With fewer resources, respecting ecological criteria, and to a smaller budget. Okay, we have a smaller budget, respecting ecological criteria, fewer resources, ways to meet demands, and all of these refer to the criteria. Okay, now let's this was paragraph 8. Let's go back to our options and the need to raise standards. Okay, this is also for paragraph 8. And as you see, addressing the concern or increasing population has nothing to do with the paragraph 8. Also, the financial cost has nothing to do with paragraph 8. Our options not very close to each other, and also irrigation system is completely irrelevant. And I chose this reading from passage 2, and it was a little bit difficult and tricky, but be sure that if you be familiar with the true nature of the reading questions, you can answer them and they won't be tricky for you. You just need to do some exercise at home and practice and improve your general English. Now let me turn off my pen and have here the answers as well. These are the answers. You can take note of the answers. Now let's take a break and continue our session. A moment of pain is worth a lifetime of glory. Remember that. That's very important to have this kind of viewpoint. Now let's go to our second example. Example number 2. Reading again, we have reading passage 2 and 9 paragraphs. These are our list of headings, and I'm going to highlight and select my keywords. But before doing that, I'm going to look at the title to just know what is the passage about. Okay, the passage is about a European transport system, and that's enough for me. It's about transport. Okay, now let me turn on my highlighter and select our keywords. A fresh and important long-term goal. A fresh and important are adjectives. We don't choose adjectives as our keywords. Okay, we choose them in order to narrow our options. So in this case, our keyword is a long-term goal. Charging for roads and improving other transport methods. Charging for roads and improving other transport methods. That can be also highlighted. Changes affecting the distances goods may be transported. Changes is very important because it's plural and the distances is also very important. Taking all steps necessary to change transport patterns. Taking all the steps. Steps is very important because it's plural, as I said to you before, to change transport patterns. Patterns is also a plural noun. The environmental costs of road transport. Environmental costs. As you see, this option is completely different from the last 4 options. The escalating cost of rail transport. It is about rail transport and escalating cost. Escalating cost is our narrower, and our keyword is rail transport. The need to achieve transport rebalance. The need to achieve transport rebalance. Transport rebalance, okay? And the rapid growth of private transport. Private transport and rapid growth. Our keyword is private transport and rapid growth is our narrower. Plans to develop major road networks. Plans is very important because it's plural. Restricting road use through charging policies alone. Charging policies. This alone is also very important. Also, restricting is important. When we find charging policies, we need to go back to these headings and narrow our options. Transport trends in countries awaiting EU admission. EU is our keyword because it's easy to find, and also trends because it's plural. And another thing we're going to do is to eliminate example paragraph. It's paragraph F, and this one I completely eliminate. You should eliminate this before starting the test, and on purpose I didn't do it before selecting our signals in order to show you that if we don't eliminate, it will be distracting and confusing for us. Now let's go and eliminate paragraph F as well. Okay, I eliminated paragraph F. Now let's start with paragraph A. Just read by your eyes. I'm gonna read it because it's a tutorial session and I have to give some explanations about the paragraphs, but just read by your eyes, and even pause the video and think for a moment, and then resume the video, and we'll do it together. It is difficult to conceive of vigorous economic growth without an efficient transport system. Okay? Transport system. Also, modern information technologies can reduce demand for physical transport by facilitating teleworking and teleservices. The requirement for transport continues to increase. There are two key factors behind this trend. For passenger transport, the determining factor is the spectacular growth in car use. That sentence is very important. The determining factor is spectacular growth in car use. The number of cars on the European Union (EU) roads saw an increase of 3 million cars each year from 1990 to 2010. We also have EU. It was one of our signals or keywords. Okay, you can just find EU by scanning, and find the determining factor, the spectacular car use, by skimming. Okay, this paragraph is also a not long paragraph. Now I'm should check EU and also the car use. Okay, now let's go back to our options. Transport trends in countries awaiting EU admission. Okay, and also restricting road use through charging policies. It has nothing to do with our paragraph. And the rapid growth of private transport. That's very important. Okay, the private transport can be paraphrased with car, and also the increase in number of cars in this paragraph. As you see, this paragraph has nothing to do with the awaiting countries in order to enter for EU, okay, but it has something with increasing a number of cars. So the correct answer would be the rapid growth of private transport, okay. This is for paragraph A. Let's go to the paragraph B. As far as goods transport is concerned, growth is due to a large extent to changes in the European economy and its system of production. In the last 20 years, internal frontiers have been abolished. Internal frontiers have been abolished. That's something to do with general English. If you don't know what the meaning of internal frontier is, you're gonna lose a lot of precious time. The EU has moved from a stock economy to a full economy. Again, the EU has nothing to do with awaiting countries for admission for something, okay? This phenomenon has been emphasized by the relocation of some industries, particularly those which are labor-intensive, to reduce production costs, even though the production site is hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away from the final assembly plant or away from users. Okay, let's go back to our options. And another important thing is that in these two paragraphs, I had to read the whole paragraph in order to answer the questions, and these two paragraphs are even not long enough. So in this case, we are more likely, in just 90% of the cases, we have to read the whole short paragraphs in order to find the correct answer. Now let's look for answer for paragraph B. It has nothing to do with long-term goal. It has nothing to do with charging, changes affecting the distances, but it has something to do with distances. Okay. It has something to do with distances, as internal frontiers have been abolished, relocation of some industries, and also particularly those which are labor intensive. Even though the production site is hundreds or even thousands of kilometers, it has something to do with a distance away from the final assembly plant or away from users. So that's our correct answer. Some changes which affect the distances. Okay, this is for paragraph B. Paragraph B is number 3. Now let's go on to the next slide and answer our other questions. The strong economic growth expected in countries which are candidates for entry to the EU will also increase transport flows, in particular road haulage traffic. Okay, this is our topic sentence. The strong economic growth expected in countries which are candidates for entry to the EU. EU was one of our keys, and in this case, EU has something to do with admission and some candidates who are waiting for entry into the EU. Okay, so let's just check the rest of the paragraphs by your eyes, and if you make sure that it's the relevant paragraph, you can select this paragraph as corresponding to heading. Transport trends. No, it's not restricting road use through charging policies alone. It has nothing to do with our paragraph. Okay, this is EU admission. EU was one of our signals. Transport trends in countries waiting EU admission. XI. These are Roman numbers. And just check by your eyes. Okay, it's about transport parents, and I find the answer for this paragraph. As you see, we didn't have to read the whole paragraph because it was not a difficult one. There was a topic sentence, and we had to just read the topic sentence. Now let's carry on and go to the next one. However, a new imperative, sustainable development, offers an opportunity for adapting the EU's common transport policy. This objective, agreed by the Gothenburg European Council, has to be achieved by integrating environmental considerations into community policies, and shifting the balance between modes of transport lies at the heart of its strategy. Okay, it's about an imperative and also something to be decided. Now let's continue. The ambitious objective can only be fully achieved by 2020. This is an ambitious objective and imperative that can be achieved by 2020, but proposed measures are nonetheless a first essential step towards a sustainable transport system which will ideally be in place in 30 years' time. It is by 2040. Let's go back to our options. It has nothing to do with charging. It has nothing to do with steps to change transport patterns. It has nothing to do with environmental costs or rail transport, and also restricting road use through charging policies and plans to develop major road networks. A fresh and important long-term goal. This is our correct answer for this paragraph. In 1998, energy consumption in the transport sector was blamed for 25% of emissions of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide has something to do with the environment. I'm going to just check this paragraph by my eyes and answer it because I only have one paragraph related to the environment, okay? Now that's it. The environmental costs of transport. I answered again this question as well, but let me check that the environmental costs of the road transport. Okay, that's good. Now let's go to our next paragraphs. The first approach would consist of focusing on road transport solely through pricing. This is a topic sentence. It has something to do with pricing, and pricing is a paraphrase of charging. Okay, It is first approach, focusing on road transport. Now let's go back to the road transport and charging for roads and improving other transport methods, and also restricting road use. This is road through charging policies alone. I have alone and I have solely. Solely is a paraphrase of alone, so that's it. I don't need to read the rest of the paragraph. That was an easy one, and our topic sentence is just at the start of our paragraph and is our first sentence. That was number X. The second approach also concentrates on road transport pricing, again road transport pricing, but is accompanied by measures to increase the efficiency of other modes. This is our first sentence and our topic sentence as well. I'm sure that we have read about this, restricting road use through charging policies alone, and we had also charging for roads and improving other transport modes. So that's our correct answer. And finally, our last paragraph, the third approach, which is not new, comprises a series of measures ranging from pricing or revitalizing alternative modes of transport and targeting investment in the trans-European network. Okay. There's no topic, a clear topic sentence. I have to continue reading the paragraph. This integrated approach would allow the market shares of the other modes to return to their 1998 levels and thus make a shift of balance. Shift of balance, and also other modes to return to their 1998 levels. It is far more ambitious than it looks. Bearing in mind the historical imbalance in favor of roads for the last 50 years, but would achieve a marked break in the link between road transport growth and economic growth, without placing restrictions on the mobility of people and goods. It is something to do with other transport to return to their previous levels, a shift of balance is some change. Let's go back to our options. Okay. Plans to develop major road networks. It has nothing to do with planning for developing major road networks. No. The escalating cost of rail transport. The paragraph isn't about rail transport, so I can eliminate this option. Taking all the steps necessary to change transport patterns. Okay, this is our answer. We finished this example, and as you see, the first two paragraphs were short paragraphs, and we had to read the whole paragraph. They were a little bit challenging. Then we had paragraph C, paragraph D, paragraph E, and paragraph F was our example. There was a clear topic sentence for paragraph C, but we had to read the whole paragraph of D because the topic sentence was at the end of the paragraph. And also the paragraph E had a clear topic sentence. Paragraph G had a clear topic sentence. Paragraph H had a clear topic sentence. But paragraph I was a little bit more challenging, and we had to understand the concept of the paragraph in order to answer the questions. But remember that if you use the elimination process in the headings and eliminate the irrelevant options, you can find the answer as well. Okay, now let me turn off my pen and have our answers. These are our correct answers. You can take a note of them. Now, let's go to our next slide. This is an important slide and an important point, maybe golden point of heading questions. Heading questions sometimes could be challenging to answer, and the strategies we discussed would not be enough to answer. These kinds of questions require a very deep knowledge of the English language and a comprehensive understanding of the text in English. These questions are not hidden questions, and you should look for details in the paragraphs. In other words, they are which paragraphs contains the following information. questions that disguise themselves in heading forms. I know that our second session and heading questions gonna be a little bit longer than usual, but believe me, it is necessary because we need to do some example for hidden questions in order to make it clear for you and completely discuss the hidden questions. Hidden questions could be in different levels. They could be easy, they could be normal, they could be challenging, they could have a topic sentence. Sometimes we have to read the whole paragraph, and in the next example we're gonna look for some specific details because that's the toughest ones. We're gonna start discussing about them, but it would be good. So don't worry and be patient if our this session is a little bit more longer than usual. Okay, that's the end of part 1 of session 2. In the next part, we're gonna continue talking about matching hidden features. I hope it will be useful for you. Again, subscribe to my channel on YouTube and like my videos and leave your comments. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.